everyone. Very
Yeah.
happy to introduce Jenny O'Brien, who's joining us for the author chat tonight. And you're going to start us off with an intro to yourself and your books.
Am I? Oh, thanks for the warning. Okay, so I'm Jenny O'Brien. I write crime fiction published by HQ Digital. I started off writing when my twins were 2. It was to try and claim a little bit of my life back. I'm also a nurse, and it was work and babies. From then, I self-published initially a couple of children's books, a few romances, and then I turned to crime with The Stepsister, which I self-published, and it did very well. So then I decided to write a police procedural, which again I started to self-publish, and the first book did very well. It actually hit #1 on both sides of the Atlantic, and was picked up by HQ Digital. So I've just published #5, which is called Buried Lies. It came out yesterday, and I'm editing #6, which doesn't have a name yet. I'm also working on book 7, which is a bit different, and I'm still nursing. The children, the twins now are 17, and I've got an older boy who's 20 at uni. That's it, I think. I live in Guernsey, by the way. I'm Irish, but I live in Guernsey, just in the English Channel somewhere.
Before we went live, you were saying that you just finished reading Sarah Moss.
Yeah, The Foul. Yeah, it was an audio book. Yeah.
I literally, in my lunch hour, finished reading Buried Lies.
Oh, yes, okay. And
today, you're not seeing my review in the group. You should know by now that I'm a fan of your books.
I think that's amazing. But anyway, I'm still at the, why should people read what I write? But thank you.
We are 5 in, and I think it's really, you've sort of got that thing where you now as interested in the lives of the characters that are the main ones in the book as you are the actual plot of the book, if that makes sense.
Yeah, their lives, the detectives' lives are heavily entwined in what's going on, and in each book you find out a little bit more about their backstory, rather than dumping it all in one book. And they each have interesting, not backstories as such, but they each have interesting quirks to them. So, but they develop for me as I write them. I didn't start the series with fully formed characters. The characters are as sort of real for me as they are for you, really. And I just add bits and pieces in as I go.
Do you, when you're doing it, so are you ever tempted to sort of write any spin-off stories about the characters?
I haven't done as yet, but there are some interesting characters there. Owen, my sort of second in command then, so Gabby's sidekick, he's quite interesting. He's a dour Welshman who has got a photographic memory, and he sort of has an interesting relationship with Gabby. Not a romantic relationship in any form. He's happily married, but something with him might go down well. Or even the younger characters. There's Jax, my tall blonde, sort of early 20-year-old, and then the ladies. There's Marie and Diane, who's a new character, and then Mal, of course, Malachi Devine, sort of big, sort of rugby playing build black man, who's interesting. Possibly.
See, I would read one about Mal and Amy if you wrote those.
Okay. Amy's interesting. Amy's the family liaison officer, and in book 5, we have a celebration. I don't want to spoil it too much if you start in book 1, but yeah, it's around a family celebration. The book is set before, middle, and after, which was quite nice. It's also set in the summer, which I wanted to do. My books normally have a very short lead-in time between them, so I only have 1 or 2 weeks before the next book hits in their timeline, so they don't have much time to recover. But the book I'm working on now, book 6, is actually set in the depths of winter, so I've given myself a 5-month break, because on one day I was writing, you know, the sun beaming down, and the next it's snowing. Which for me was, as a writer, that was good, because I could just wipe that story clean and then move on. So that's a little change that's coming next in the next book.
I've just done some maths in my head and got very excited about something else that might happen in the next book.
Oh yes. Yeah, I can't say very much.
I'm not going to say because I don't want to give away a spoiler.
No, yeah, I know. I can't talk about book 6, because book 6 it's different again, and there's good things and there's interesting things going on in book 6. You know, you're not going to get an easy read from me, in that I'm not going to give you what you always expect. And I don't think writers should necessarily. Obviously, we don't want to upset our readers and disappoint them, but it's not going to be a good read, if you're always going to get what you expect. So there's unexpected around every corner in my books, because that's the way life is. You know, you get into your car and you don't know what's around the corner. I live in the country, so even though Guernsey is only 9 by 5 miles, and the country is quite small, countryside, around the corner, and I could see a horse or a bus. They're quite common at the end of our lane. You know, nobody knows what's around the corner, so it is with my books.
Right, so let's go with one of Valerie's questions.
Okay.
So, Valerie, who I think is like a good friend, isn't she, of yours?
Yeah, she's my writing buddy. So
she said, your question is, you work as a nurse, have 3 children. When do you fit writing in?
I don't do much else. So I basically work. On my days off, I will go for a swim. I swim all year round in the sea with just my bathers, no wetsuit. There's a group of us. I call us old ladies. I'm the youngest, so it's 70-year-olds plus. So I'll go for a swim on my day off with them, and then I'll come home and I'll work. I'll edit, or I'll be writing. On my work days, I work 12-hour shifts at the hospital. So I'll write for 15 minutes before I go to work in the morning. And then we're not allowed our phones at work, but during my coffee break or lunch break, I'll have my phone, and I can be working on my phone. I can either be writing on it using the dictate function, or I'll be on social media doing promotional stuff. Yeah, so I'm always working, basically, which is my choice at the minute. I don't think I can keep it up forever, but yeah, I've got this book I'm writing I want to finish, and then we'll see again. The kids now, because they're teenagers, I don't see that much of them. I also have to do taxi driving duties, so I've just been doing that. Daughter helps with disabled swimming on a Thursday, so I've just bombed her halfway across the aisle and come back, stuck tea in the oven, and then come up here to chat to you. So there's always something going on.
She also wants to know, she said she read your romance novels a few years ago. Now, I've got a question about that. Did you publish those under your same name?
Yeah, Jenny O'Brien. Yeah, there's five of them. So it's English Woman in Paris, Scotland. There's a Scotland one is just above my head there. Yeah, so basically I'd written a children's book, and then I did my back in about 4 years ago at work. Problems with my well, you don't want to hear about my back problems, but nurses don't have great backs, not if they're in the job I do. So I was lying on the sofa with a slip disc and sciatica, really not being able to move. And I looked out the window and I saw that next door had the roof being done and there was scaffolding. And literally that was my eye line. I had my phone and I had these roofers. They're very nice too. So while I was lying on the sofa, I thought I could write a story about a roofer. So I did. But I set it in Paris. It was around the time when Downton Abbey was big on the screens, first series, second series. And so it was a bit like posh English women meeting down-to-earth blokes with a few twists. So again, not straightforward romances. And I don't do X-rated anything, so innocent romances. Yeah, I enjoyed writing those at my time of life. That was good. But then I moved on and to The Stepsister, which Valerie encouraged me to write. So that's a psychological thriller, which has a little bit of romance in it, but it's set in Guernsey and then Holland, about a woman who inherits a house in Holland. Her sister goes to investigate because she's a lawyer and she disappears. So that was my first dipping my toes into thrillers. But there is a bit of romance in, so it was sort of breaking myself in gently.
Valerie's question was actually, would you return to writing the romance?
Oh, would I return? Probably not. Maybe. I don't know. I've got some ideas. I've got a couple of ideas for psychological thrillers. But pure romances, probably not.
You could blend them. So, you know, with the popularity of things like Bridgerton.
Yeah, no, and I love Bridgerton. I'd read the series when it first came out about 10 years ago. I do read quite a bit of romance. Yeah, I loved it, and I'll be the first sitting in front of Netflix for for the next book. Yeah, but that's been done. You know, if you're going to write something different. So yeah.
Have you read any of? So there's an author in our group called Kelly Clayton. She lives on Jersey.
Kelly Clayton.
Yeah, she writes as Julia Hardy a series called. The first one is called Fortune's Hostage, and it's like a cross between Bridgerton and a crime novel.
Oh right, okay. I'll have to look them out.
So you got like a Regency romance going on, but with a hint of crime.
Yeah, no, I quite like romantic suspense, but yeah, I'll have to look her out. I know a couple of Jersey writers, but not that one. So many writers, so many books.
There are. Right, so the last of Valerie's questions, because she had another one.
Right, okay. Thank you, Valerie, not.
She says, you live on an island. Does that help or hinder your writing in any way?
It doesn't affect it in any way because it is what it is. I don't know is the answer. I've lived here for 33 years now, so I've never known anything different because I've been writing for 15. Yeah, there's a nice community vibe about the island. It's only 60,000 people, and sort of there's a small writing network. There's a Twitter network which is really nice and supportive, and they've been supportive to me as a writer, so that's lovely. We've got our own Guernsey Literary Festival, which is quite big. We had Joanna Harris last year, although it had to end up being a Zoom with everything. So, and I've been invited to appear on that next year. So that's lovely. So it is nice to have the support networks there, but I don't know any difference, so can't really answer that.
Does it affect your research though? Because obviously you're on Guernsey, but the Gabby books are set in Wales.
I used to live in Wales, so when I left Ireland, I moved to Wales. I was there for a couple of years. My family moved there, so my sister lives in Glan Conway, which is down the road from Llandudno, which is 20 minutes from St. Asaph. So that's easy research for me because I used to live there. I've got family. My brother still lives there. He's in Clandidno. So yeah, they help me as well. But a lot of the places that I write about in Clandidno, I know very well. That's why I'm quite selective as to where I choose to write in North Wales. The first book was in South Wales. My great grandmother was from Pembrokeshire, so that's why I started out the series Silent Cry in South Wales. But then I very quickly shifted it to North Wales because I knew that writing about a place that you know is much easier than writing about a place that you're not that familiar with. So
do you just message your brother and sister occasionally and be like, take me some photos of this?
Yeah, yeah, well, I do go home. Well, pre-COVID, I did, and I called it home. I go home when I can. My mum sadly passed away at the start of last year, but before that, you know, I was over there 3 times a year. So, and I will, when travel links are a little bit more open, I will be going back again to visit family. Yeah, so I want to do that again. But you know, I've missed that. I'm going to try and stop saying if Leslie's there. Hi Leslie. I say a lot, but yeah. my niece is called Emily Ems, so that's what I'm doing. I'm calling her.
What's the reception like to the books in Wales?
Yes, it's been, I think, quite good. I've got quite a few Welsh readers. I've been invited on. I was invited on to speak to on Radio Wales about 2 or 3 months ago, which was lovely. And oh God, I've got to remember that M now. I've been interviewed for some newspapers over there, and yeah, I think I'm going to stop speaking now. It's good. Yes, people have been very, very kind. I do like to include some local businesses for flavour as well. So there's a cheese company, a local cheese company in North Wales called Castle Will, I think you pronounce it. And I included the lovely owners, Jackie Whitaker's cheese, in one of the books that was in Lost Souls. And in the book I'm working on at the minute, it features a guest house in Clandidno. So I got in touch with one of the owners of this guest house, and I just said, you know, do you mind if I use your guest house just to locate somewhere that people can place? There's a cake shop in Clandidno again, just where is it? Off the high street, and they appear. So yeah, just if people live locally, they know I've had people's permission to use their premises, and I can look on their website and I can write about places that I can actually see pictures of. Makes it easier for me as a writer as well.
That must be nice for people watching as well, or reading, because then they could potentially go and visit the places.
Yes, well, I think that, you know, there's no such thing as bad publicity, they say. So there's also a pizza restaurant which features in book 6, Johnny Doe's Pizza Restaurant. That's in Clandidno, and I had a nice chat with the owner and asked him did he want to appear. So yeah, it's all good, I think. Obviously, I can't use too many, and when I'm murdering people, I don't. One of the questions I always ask is anybody going to be murdered on our premises? And I say, no, I'll choose somebody else's premises for that. It's only the good things or the parts of the investigation that appear.
So we've got Lucy, Patsy, Sam, T, and Leslie have all said hello.
Hi.
Do your family read your books? Because your children are probably old enough now to be reading.
So my husband read the start of Boy Brainy, that was the first book I wrote, and he said that's really well written, but I think he read a chapter. So he's read, yeah, I can say he's read none of my books, and he probably won't. When our friends then if we're out and they say, oh, they'll come to me and say, oh, I've just read such and such and it was really good. and they'll turn to Alan, that's my husband's name, and they'll say, Alan, you know, it's really good. And he said, oh, I do intend to read it at some point, but you know, that's his choice. And my children, my daughter Freya, she's read one, but they're there if they want to read them. My boys, one of them isn't a great reader, so he wouldn't, and the other one probably wouldn't. My sister does, and yeah. But you know, that doesn't worry me. I think it's some writers, it worries them whether their partners, friends, children read their books. You know, people like my books and want to read them, they're there. If they don't, you know, I think there's nothing worse than being a book bore. So at work during my nursing, I'd been writing for about 5 years before I actually told anybody that I was writing. Nobody knew. And one of the when it came out, one of the nurses that I was actually working with said, oh, I read your series about 3 years ago. I didn't realize it was you. But you know, that's nice, because that means they found my books by themselves without me telling them. I'd like to come across somebody reading one of my books somewhere, in a, you know, in a cafe or something, or in a boat, or on an aeroplane, or just somewhere. That would give me a thrill. I haven't done that yet. I found them in charity shops. That's quite interesting. But yeah, they're in the local bookshop here, and they're in bookshops, some of the bookshops in the UK. So I've managed to see them in bookshops. They're in libraries. That's nice. Nice to see them in libraries.
We always made it to my science classroom today, but I don't think that's...
No, that's good.
That's not very exotic.
No such thing as bad publicity. So...
in this one, there is like a little hint of sort of nursing, isn't there?
Nursing is creeping in. I don't write about what I do at all, but because I know stuff that other people don't, it is easy research for me. So in Buried Lies, there's a bit about diabetes, which I tried to explain in layman's terms. So there's a section where Rusty Mulholland, my Irish pathologist, is explaining diabetes and the chemicals and how it works to Gabby, and he has to explain it to somebody who doesn't know about the condition. So I think that worked well, but I did seek advice from our endocrinologist at work. So again, being a nurse, I work with all these consultants, so I just said to her, I've written this. Do you mind if I email it to you? Can you tell me, is it right? Is it wrong? I went into diabetic ketoacidosis and all that kind of thing. And I just wanted to double check my facts. And she came back with some suggestions, and I've included her in the acknowledgements. But that was really good of her to give up her time. It would have only taken her a couple of minutes. But yeah, they're very helpful to me. In book 4, Lost Souls, there's an orthopedic bit, and again, it's about somebody's remains being found in a cremator, and when the guy is brushing out the ashes, he comes across 3 hip replacements, when somebody will only ever have 2 hip replacements, unless the surgeon has made a mega error. And I went to see one of our orthopedic surgeons, and he actually got me a prosthetic hip to show me, and it was just amazing to be able to hold it, to feel the weight, and you know, to have something solid in my hand that I was going to write about. I also got in touch with somebody in the UK who runs crematoriums, and they have this process where they recycle prosthetic hips and send them to Africa, because I needed to know whether, after the temperatures that you have in a cremator, whether I would end up with a lump of blackened metal, or whether I'd actually end up with something that looks like a prosthetic hip. And it does, it looks like a prosthetic hip. So it's fascinating what you can learn. So nursing can take me so far, but then I need to go on my own journey to find out more.
Have you ever in your nursing career experienced anything like the things that have happened in Buried Lies?
In give me a nudge.
A spoiler in sort of,
yeah, it's difficult to give the plot away, but
in sort of some of the things that go missing, or the lack.
Oh yes.
Lack of
one of the book reviews on NetGalley was, "This could not happen. Believe me, it can." So it was part of it's to do with drugs going missing. When you're checking controlled drugs in a hospital setting, there's 2 nurses, and all the controlled drugs on the ward have to be checked every day. There's a reason for that, because drugs can go missing. People can lose keys. You know, every tablet, every controlled drug tablet or ampule has to be accounted for, and that's because there are people with sticky fingers. I'm not talking about nurses or doctors or pharmacists, but things happen. Strange things do happen. So nothing has ever happened on our ward in that drugs have gone missing. But I've heard stories about, again, I'm not talking about my hospital, but I've heard stories that things have happened. And if you're in charge of an area, like if you're in charge of a hospital, or if you're in charge of a nursing home, the standards in nursing home for controlled drugs are slightly different. And I know that because I used to work in a nursing home, in how they manage controlled drugs, because you might not always have 2 trained nurses on duty. You might just have 1 trained nurse on duty responsible if something happens. So if you have maybe a fire alarm, or the trained nurse is on their tea break, or, you know, the number of stressful things that can happen in any healthcare situation. Think about all the COVID things that are happening and the crisis situations. If you have a bunch of keys, I can imagine situations where those keys might be misplaced for a while. You know, if there's a fire alarm at work and I'm in charge of the ward, which I'm a senior staff nurse, but so I'm frequently in charge of the ward, my duty would be to run out just to check to see, you know, where the fire is, etc. If I have those keys, I'll be throwing them at the nearest trained staff I can see, because I can't take the keys off the ward if somebody else were to pick those up. So I'm just imagining situations here, you know, so I wouldn't have written it if I didn't think that it could have happened, you know. And you do hear in the news of nurses who have been prosecuted for stealing drugs. Despite all the controls that are in place, the controlled drug book, 2 sets of keys. So on ward, there are controlled drugs are kept in a controlled drug cabinet within a controlled drug cabinet. So there's two sets of keys, and those 2 sets of keys live on 2 bunches of keys, which 2 different nurses carry, 2 different trained nurses carry. If you're in a nursing home situation, there might only be 1 trained nurse on duty. So, but imagination comes into it too. It has to, you know, it does have to.
I'm going to borrow one of Sam's questions for you.
Okay.
Which is, tell us about the most recent scene that you wrote, without giving away a spoiler.
No, that's really difficult, because I'm editing at the moment, and I've been editing for the last 2 weeks. So I'm writing book 7, and the scene is somebody who has returned from, so my detective has returned from the crime scene. The crime scene is set in Seaside, and they're on the train, and they decide to nip home for the lunch, to have a lunch break. Instead of going back to the office, they've gone home to have a lunch break, and they've had a row with their husband, and they're sorting through the washing, which sounds very mundane and ordinary, but I like to include those mundane, ordinary bits in, because it's a bit like, I can't remember who said it, but if you have a gun in chapter 1, you have to make sure it goes off in chapter 3, or something similar. That's a misquote, but the quote is very similar to that. There's a reason why there's a reason why every bit of my book is in that book, and I think with all crime novels there has to be. So there's a reason why that journey happens, and why she pops home for her lunch, and why she has the thoughts that she has, and why she's sorting through the washing. But that's another book. That's another world, another crime.
As Leslie said, though, that element of mundane also makes the characters feel real.
I think they do, and that's what people have said to me. You know, my characters come across as ordinary. They could come across as somebody that you'd maybe like to go, well, not the murderers, but you'd like to go and have a cup of tea with them and a chat, and you could talk about ordinary things, the conversations that you overhear in cafes that maybe two women or would have, or two men standing by the bar, two friends would be having. And that's the kind of atmosphere I want. You know, in an ordinary situation, the most extraordinary things can happen, and there's nothing more extraordinary than life and what's happening at the moment. You know, we just have to look around us, open our eyes, and see what's happening in the world to know 1 minute everything is hunky-dory, and the next minute I don't know what's going on. So that's what I try and bring into my books, really.
Do you have a set number of books you're going to write with Gabby and Cohen?
I can't answer that. That's a question I can't answer. I do know the answer, but I can't answer that. I think that series can either go on forever, or series can have a defined start and end point. And the thing that defines that is the stories that you're writing. So for me, it's not about the crimes as such. It's about my detectives and their lives and what's going on in their journey, which is taking part in tandem with the cases. So I can't answer that. I don't want to give anything away. Spoil it for people.
That seems reasonable. So, yeah. Would you ever write with Valerie?
We've had this discussion. I don't know. Valerie is an incredibly quick writer. Oh my goodness, she is just. She's over the. I hope she won't mind me saying this, but over the last couple of days, she's had a pretty bad time because her computer has crashed and she's lost some words. But normally she'll write maybe her target will be about 4,000 words a day, and I could never write that. My target would be maximum of 2. I think I wrote 5,000 once, and it nearly killed me. And that was when I was doing NaNoWriMo, so that November writing competition. So possibly, I don't know what we'd write about. You know, we do writing sprints, which is great for both of us. So we start at 0, stop clock at the start of the day. We'll speak every hour, 2 hours. We'll go off and do our whatever we're doing. Valerie might go shopping, get her hair done. I'll go for my swim, school pickup, all that sort of stuff. And in between, we'll just WhatsApp, and it will be the number that we've written. So it'll spur the other person on, and then at the end we'll do a tally. But that's actually really helps both of us to focus, because we're competing with each other. We're quite competitive. So possibly, but I don't know what we write on.
Would you write, so I know you've written kids and you've written romance in the past, would you write any other kind of crime things, or outside of the crime genre now?
I've got a psychological thriller. Well, I've actually got 3 psychological thrillers flashing around in my head, so I'm going to probably write one of those next year. I've got an agent now. I've recently taken on by Nicola from the Bent Agency, so things are going to be a little bit different. But this writing log, I've done it completely back to front. I got a web, you know, I self-published. Well, I wasn't going to publish at all in the first place. I was just going to write, and then I was sort of forced into self-publishing, and then I got my deal with HQ Digital, and after I got my deal with HQ Digital, I got an agent. So everything's back to front, but things are going to change again with my writing. I've never had an agent before. So I don't know. The plan is to carry on writing what I'm writing, so crime, police procedurals, and then to slip in a psychological thriller a year. I see how my work-life balance pans out with that. Thank you very much. So as long as I can see swim, as long as I can do the kids pickups and all that sort of stuff, yeah, I'll just have to work around that.
Leslie says she is very interested in the psychological thriller. Can you tell us anything about it?
Well, I've got 3 stories in my head. Leslie, I wish you hadn't said that about M, because every time I say M, I think of M. So I'm going to say A instead. The psychological thrillers, I can't really say because I've got a strong female lead that I'm thinking of, and she's in a relationship, and they break up, and afterwards something happens to her that makes him want to get back together with him, and she decides that she's going to not get back with him, and she leaves the area, and then something starts to happen. Strange things start to happen, and she doesn't know why they're happening. So that's not telling you a huge amount, because it's in there, it's churning away, and I don't want to give too much away. And it's a long time since I've written The Stepsister, so I just have to think of it. I've got to finish the book I'm writing first, and then I'll start on this one. Sorry, Leslie.
I think it's good though. You've already got a reader, potentially.
Yes, Leslie, yes.
Can you write more than one thing at once, or do you work on one thing at a time?
I can write more than one thing at once, but I try to write one thing at a time. At the minute, the way it's working is I'm editing one, writing one, and publicizing another, which is a nightmare in itself, really. So I don't think I could. I wouldn't really want to write 2, edit one, and then be publicizing another. That, you know, there has to be some sort of stop off. Life has to be in part enjoyable. But I have written more than one book at a time.
Would the agent help with the publicizing?
Yeah, that's what agents do. But having said that, I've never had an agent before, so they would help with book contracts. So I've had 2 book contracts with HQ Digital. Book 6, the book that I have handed to them in September, and I'm editing at the minute. That's the last of the 3 books. So we're in talks with them at the moment, and just have to see. I don't know what's going to happen. I know as much as you do about what's going to happen, and I've only just recently got Nicola from the Bent Agency. I've only signed up about 3 weeks, so that's all very new for me as well. It's a new part of the journey, really. Quite scary.
I'm going to apologise now if you can hear any weird noises. I think someone next door to me is starting to drill in the house. About like 20 to 8.
I can't hear anything. I've heard stamping down the stairs, which means my daughter is there and has run up the stairs, seen that her door is closed, and I'm actually working in her bedroom, and has gone downstairs again, hopefully to warm up tea, which is in the oven. I've left her a note.
Excellent. That you hope she reads.
What to read the notes? She will. It's on the top of her laptop.
Who is your favourite character that you've written then?
Oh dear. I like Gabby, I have to say. Short and feisty and a bit round, says what she thinks. Part of Gabby is me, because nurses have to have filters. They have to very much guard what they have to say to patients and relatives. So one thing would be flickering in my mind, and what my mouth is saying is totally different. So, and Gabby's doesn't have that filter. I think she's mellowed over the books, but she does say what she thinks, and that's quite liberating, to be able to be able to say what you think, as long as you're not going to upset people or be rude, or if people have been rude to you, well, why can't we be rude back? Nurses can't be rude back. So if a patient is rude, you know, we get all sorts of patients. Nurses look after all sorts of people. People can be violent, aggressive, and yes, all hospitals, all units have violence and aggression policies. But if your patient might have a head injury or dementia, you know, they go out the window, because obviously it's patients are not responsible for their actions in certain cases. And you have to treat everybody with kindness, especially in those situations. Yeah, so Gabby doesn't have that filter. She says what she thinks. She's able to say what she thinks.
Do you find yourself being, because I think what you've described is very much like teaching as well, in that you can't sort of, you have to have an inner monologue and an outer monologue.
You have to let off steam in nursing, and you know, I view, I'm writing a police procedural. I reviewed the police and nursing as very similar in a way. We have gallows humours, both nurses and the police. So I don't know whether teachers do, but I don't know what your coffee room is like, your teacher's lounge, but the humour, nurses' humour is very black. It has to be. And it's not that you're laughing at your patients, because I'm not. And often we're not talking about our patients, we're just letting off steam. And I'm sure the police are the same, and I'm sure teachers are the same. Yeah, there is inner monologues, but your face always can never reveal what you're thinking in nursing. You know, you come across those, and you come across the most tragic situations, and inside you just want to, you know, you're sad as the person you're with, but they're looking to you to be strong, and they're looking to you for guidance. They're looking for you for some way to, some route out of the situation where they might, you're trying to find hope for them, help them find hope. And that's very difficult. We can't lie, but we have to try and find words that will give people some kind of hope in a situation, or some kind of comfort. It's experience. That's comfort experience. Yeah, don't really know what I'm trying to say there, but it's about respect. But on the other side of the coin, we do have to let off steam, as I'm sure as a teacher you do. You know, you're smiling, and then behind it you're thinking, ooh.
Do you find yourself a lot less patient away from work?
On the ward, the staff, I'm known for being the calm one. You know, I'm pushed, and they use me for difficult situations, because I don't know. I do, and if I'm the senior nurse on duty, then I will put myself forward in those difficult situations, because it's my responsibility, and I won't let a junior member of staff deal with something if I'm there, because it's my responsibility. At home, I suppose when the children were young, you know, when the twins were born, and then he was 3 at the time, Joel. He didn't sleep for years. He was, you know, the twins, I got them into a routine after about 6 weeks, and he was still up most nights. So I found that really, really difficult. I wasn't reading at that point, and I'm sure my temper was short, but I was working. I had children. It was just full on, as you know. It was just, yeah. But it's better. It's a lot easier now.
I think I'm less patient when I'm away from work.
Less patient.
Mm.
I might be less tolerant.
Yeah, tolerant.
I don't do queues that well, but I won't. You know, if you're in a shop, you know, and you're being served by somebody who's on minimum wage, it's our duty to respect that. But if there's a long queue, particularly in COVID, if there was a long queue outside the door, I'd just drive past and I'd root around in the freezer to see if I could feed the tribe something that rather than queue. But, it's, I suppose it's easier having a mobile phone these days, because you can always go on your phone, can't you, when you're in a queue. But I suppose less tolerant. Put a smile on your face, walk away. I always think it's best to turn the other cheek, you know, and I don't rise up to things particularly. I'll just go away, and at work it's our kitchen, and if something happens and I need to let off steam, I'll just go into the kitchen and I'll have a chat to the kitchen agent. I just go, but then after a minute I'll have calmed down and I'll just go out again, smile on, and then carry on. It is what it is. You just have to try your best, but none of us are perfect. Writing is a good way of letting off steam, because you can have had a bad day at work, and then you can go home, you can sit down and you can blaze out this scene and you can just get it out of your head. Or swimming. So yesterday was a horrendous day at work, but I also had a book out and I was working, so I was feeling quite frustrated because I was meant to be on social media helping my publisher, and I didn't have my phone because I'm not allowed my phone at work, which is fair enough. So this morning I was just feeling physically and mentally drained. So I went for a sea swim, and after 20 minutes in the water, I just felt like $1 million. I just let it all go off my shoulders. Another day, that's gone with. Books out, got the day at work under my belt, and all the patients ended up fine. All the staff were fine. So good job. Job well done. Yeah.
My favourite character is Rusty.
Rusty, I like Rusty. I have this is my husband's not listening, and he doesn't read my books, and he won't watch this. I like red-haired Irishmen. There you go, I've said it. And Rusty's a red-haired Irishman. Always have. I'm Irish. There's a thing about red hair and being Irish, and yeah, nice, tall, red-haired Irishman. Nice Irish accent. He's yeah, but he doesn't pull his punches either, does he? He says what he thinks.
Yeah, I think that's what I like about him. He says what he thinks.
We need somebody to play him, somebody to pick up the series, and somebody to play him. Who do you think could play him?
Oh, I have no idea. I'm terrible at picking actors for things. Do you have a picture in your head of who it would be?
No. A young Ryan Reynolds for Jax, and that's about as far as it goes. But it would have to be Ryan Reynolds 20 years ago. Gabby, I would have no idea about, because she's just somebody I've plucked from my head. Malachi would be that guy from The Chase, the lawyer. I can't think of his name, but a young version of him I would have him in my mind as yeah. But no, to be honest, as I said, I don't watch a huge amount of television. I said that to you earlier, so I'm a bit behind times as to who I'd pick.
Yeah, and I don't either. I'm very not into watching a lot of television.
Yeah, there's always a good book.
A good book, or a good jigsaw, or something else. Yeah. Leslie said she liked it when Gabby ate his son's fish and chips.
Yes,
that was a great moment.
Yes, well, that's from a true story, Leslie. We were in France staying at a gîte, and the twins were about 3, and Joel was he was 6, and they, oh my goodness, they were acting up. They really were. So Alan said to me, "Take the car and go to the boulangerie bakery down the road and buy the biggest cake that you can find." And I thought, okay. So took the car, drove on the wrong side of the road, so the French side of the road, and went to the boulangerie, hot in my mouth because I don't like driving in France. Bought these religious cakes. They're like choux buns, but they're big, fancy, creamy, drippy things. And he said buy one, so I bought 2. Came back. He sat at the table opposite me, and we sat down in front of the 3 children, and we said, it was his idea. It wasn't my idea, promise. We ate them in front of them, and they were screaming because they didn't get cake, and we were eating in front of them. And I was feeling really guilty. I was also feeling really sick because I don't actually eat that kind of cake. I like a piece of chocolate maybe, but I wouldn't eat a big cream bun filled thing. So I was forcing it down, and Alan was eating it with relish, and the children were in the corner screaming, but they quietened down. And then later on in the afternoon, we took them out and we got them a treat. But I think they actually learned quite a lot from that. That, sometimes parents do have enough, and we are in charge. But it was a lesson. They learned a lesson, but they did have their treat later. And I was full of cake I didn't want, and all those calories. Can you imagine? Oh, yeah. So that was based on a true story.
It's just, yeah, I read that and really enjoyed that moment. I thought it was great. Leslie says that she also loves the Irish accent. She's listening to a lot of Irish audios.
Okay. Yes. I like the Irish accent. I think, well, I'm told I've lost mine unless I get excited or I've had too many wines, which is rare. But yeah, I like the Northern Irish accent too. Yeah, I've got a fondness. It makes me feel, I say Wales is home, but Ireland is home as well. So far away from my homes. Yeah, I don't have. I have cousins left in Dublin, but that's all now because my family moved to Wales when I was 17. So yeah, that's it. And an aunt, my aunt is 91, Auntie Doreen. Auntie Doreen, she appears in Lost Souls. It was going to be her 90th birthday when I was writing it. So what you buy a 90-year-old? So I made this lovely character, Doreen Frost, and she was the nice that in Lost Souls there's a trio of witches, but there's this nice lady, Doreen. So she's in the book. She loved that. So yeah, I enjoyed including her.
That's a nice touch. So have you ever acted out a scene as you were writing it?
Yes and no. Leslie, I'm saying them again. When you're writing speech, you have to interrupt speech with action, because otherwise, if you're writing a long speech, it gets boring for the reader. So there'd be things. So I had my son in a head hold about a month ago. I was writing this scene where there was a head hold, and I wasn't sure where my perpetrator's hands would be on the person's face. So I said to my son, stay there for a minute. He was on his computer. I just want to try and strangle you. And I was pushing my hands around him, and I wanted to see where the location of and how far I could stretch. So yes, I do. For body language, I do. I think body language is important, and it's important to get it right. Yeah, so I will be acting out in that way. But actual scenes, no, it would be bits of scenes, the body language bits, just to make sure that A fits into B and gives the right impression.
What did your son make of you trying to work out?
Oh, they're used to me. My daughter says to me, Mom, we get in the car and other children will have normal conversations like, what would you like for your tea? Or what are we watching on the television later? And you'll be saying, I'm writing this scene in this book. How do you think I should murder this person? And what do you think about this knife? And I've thought about this poison. What do you think about that? And we have these really in-depth conversations, and they're really helpful. So they do help. In Darkest Night, I love that trope where somebody goes to bed and wakes up beside a dead body. It's happened so much, and I've blatantly stolen it because it was in 39 Steps, that John Buchan novel, where he comes back to his house, he puts this woman up, and she's found dead in the lounge the next day. That's great on television, but also read the book. The book's good too. He wrote quite a few good books. And then we had a movie with Jane Fonda. I can't remember the name. There was one with Desmond Bankley, similar. So I used that trope, but I wanted to put a different spin on it. And I was chatting to my daughter, and I was saying, well, how can I do it? How can I make a difference? So we came up with, both of us together, this woman goes to bed with a man and she wakes up beside the dead body of a woman. So yes, it's a similar trope, but it's putting a twist on it. And how did that happen? How did the body change, and who killed? Whether it was her or those are the kinds of conversations that we have. I don't know what they're going to write in my headstone. Here lies the body of our mother who was weird. I don't know. I'm actually going to be cremated, so there you go. There'll be no headstone.
I think that's great, though. I mean,
it's different. Yeah. And goodness help me if somebody ever gets hold of my laptop and looks to see my searches, because they're not the normal searches. At the minute, most of them seem to be along the A55, which is that road that runs along the top of North Wales, because I'm always on there and I'm checking distances and routes and that sort of thing. But there's lots of other interesting searches. There was a meme yesterday, and it was a chat. I think it was Susie Lyons who put it up, and it was in a control room, then a police control room, special agents, and they were saying, "So I've got this this woman, and she's searching again. She's searching about knives and about blood splatter and whatever. Do you think we should add her to our people of interest?" And the officer looks over his shoulder and he says, "No," he said, "look at the rest of her searches. It's how many coffees a day is good for you, and something about writer's block. She's another blony writer." So you know, that's what writers do. We do odd things, odd searches. I wonder what Julia Quinn, the writer of Bridgerton, what she used to search while she was writing that series.
Not always things where she translates Americanisms to English very well.
No, and the actual, if you have you read the books, the books themselves are very different to the series. It was a lot of poetic license went on the series, although I did enjoy it. It was very good.
The series is very good. Yeah, I read the books after
the
series. But yeah, I'm working my way through some of her other series now.
Right. No, I do like her. She's good.
I do like her. She's very good. I think she sort of is less focused on research than some of our crime writer would be.
Right. I like the fact that the woman who turned her books into the series, I think Shauna, I don't know, I think Shauna something her name was, and she was away on holidays and she had bought books, and then she'd run out of books, and there was a book, Julia Quinn's first Bridgerton book was, I think, where she was staying, and she picked it up and read it, and from that accident came the television series, you know, which is a huge bit of. So
that's always good, though, isn't it, when you discover a book series by accident? We've got 2 minutes left.
Okay, right, that's gone quick.
I know, it's just flying by. I've got so many questions still to ask you.
All right, okay. I'll have to appear again.
You will. You'll have to come back. Book 6. Book 6, you can come back.
Book 6, thank you.
Sam can host you, maybe, because we swap hosts.
Right, okay.
I can watch and ask all my questions. That might be the plan.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I'll take you up on that.
Yeah, I'll just sneak all my questions in while Sam's there, and she'll be that sounds great, because then I can think of them all in advance and get them all written down. So finish us off with a reminder of yourself and your books. Have you got the cover of the most recent one to show off?
I don't know. So it's not out in paperback until January. So I've written 6 books so far in the Gabby Darren series. She's a feisty, half Italian, half Liverpudlian detective working out of Wales. Buried Lies is about a young woman who returns home after an overnight stay, a staycation, with a friend, a female friend, and she discovers her partner is dead in his car. She also discovers that her 5-year-old, who's a type 1 diabetic, is missing. It occurs in the summer around celebrations where Detective Gabby, and her best friend Amy, who's the family liaison officer, are celebrating something special. And it's serious, but there's some humor. I like to include humor as well, but appropriate humor. Yeah, that's it really. So there's 5 books out. The first 3 are in audio. There'll be paperback coming for book 5, and then book 6 is out in May. And I've got no name. HarperCollins chooses the name, which is fine because I'm actually hopeless at choosing names. When I first published Silent Cry, it was called Missing in Wales because it was about a baby who was missing in Wales. And then the second book, which is called Darkest Night and is about the woman waking up beside the dead body of a woman, it's called Stabbed in Wales because it was about somebody stabbed in Wales. So I'm not good at titles. So that's fine. That's it. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
thank you
very much for joining us.
Thank you.